You are not the first person to lie awake in the soft blue silence before dawn and whisper, "Are you there?" A clock hums on the wall. A refrigerator breathes. Somewhere a streetlight blinks in its own lonely rhythm. You stare at the ceiling and wonder whether the ache in your chest is simply chemistry or the echo of someone calling you by name. Most days you push past that question. There are bills to pay, children to feed, deadlines to meet. But every so often, when life grows quiet, the old question returns with a tender, stubborn patience. Is there a God? Or have I only trained myself to want one? And if God is real, why does he feel so hidden, like a voice behind the veil? I'm not here to win an argument or to beat anyone in a debate. Arguments win clicks. Love wins people. Tonight, I only want to set a chair at your table, pour a cup of something warm, and talk like travelers who meet at a wayside inn and discover they've been wandering the same road in opposite directions. I'm going to offer you 3 threads I've found, 3 lines that, when drawn together, sketch the outline of a presence. Not a microscope proof, not a textbook equation, but good reasons to consider that the one your heart already suspects is, in fact, there and nearer than your next breath. You don't have to pretend to believe, just listen, just consider, because even now, whether you feel it or not, God is with. Begin here. When we find a song, we ask about the singer. When we find a letter, we look for the hand that wrote it. When a child discovers a sand castle, she turns around instinctively and scans the beach for the builder, because mind leaves a signature that wind and waves cannot counterfeit. It's a simple habit of heart and head. We do it every hour of every day. A building implies an architect, a garden implies a gardener, even a footprint in fresh snow implies that someone passed by before us. Stand beneath the broad sky and extend that same simple habit outward. If there is a universe, a story with pages of stars and chapters of time, what should we expect? If every small beginning we know points to a cause, why would the greatest beginning of all be the single exception? I remember an afternoon in an old train station, all glass and iron bones, where the roof held sunlight the way a cupped hand holds water. People hurried under the vaulted arches, their footsteps echoing like clear bells. There were clocks, timetables, tracks that ran away into distance. None of it made sense without a prior mind to draw the plans, lay the rails, set the schedules. If this small station required intention, does the vastness beyond the glass not speak at least as loudly? The world is a platform where moments arrive and depart. The question is not whether a train is coming. The question is who designed the rails. But if everything needs a cause, someone says, then who caused God? Listen closely. Not everything needs a cause. Everything that begins does. If there is one who simply is, who does not begin or end, then he is not one more link in the chain. He is the ground the chain rests on. Call that word mysterious if you like. I only ask you to notice how your life already leans on this idea without naming it. You trust some things to be constant. The reliability of numbers, the invisible laws that make your coffee steam and your lungs inhale. You trust the ground to be there each morning when you swing your feet out of bed. Beneath every trust is the intuition that not everything is borrowed. Somewhere, something simply is. And if that is so, then the story of the universe reads not from nothing by nothing to nothing, but from mind to meaning. Walk a little further with me. If the question of origin opens a door, the question of design invites us inside. Lay your hand against your chest. Feel the steady metronome of a heart that has been drumming its quiet drum since before you could form a single sentence. Think of the orchestra hidden in that one body, the unspoken agreements between breath and blood, the intricate courtesies cells extend to one another without asking our permission, the strange music by which nerves whisper and muscles answer. A pianist cannot fake a symphony for long. Her fingers confess her true skill. In the same way, the world keeps giving itself away as a work of art by the music it plays. I had a friend who was a chemist, the sort of patient soul who would spend an entire afternoon coaxing a shy reaction to step out of the shadows. "I measure," he told me, "because if I don't, chaos walks in." He was not a theologian, not a poet, and yet he would laugh at the idea that his delicate formulas, the way he guided volatile elements into harmony, could be produced by accident. "If it takes care to make a small thing behave," he would say, "why should I be surprised if a greater care made all of this?" He wasn't attacking anyone's science. He was simply being honest about his own experience. Order tends to come from mind, not from nothing. Of course, we can name patterns and map them. We can marvel at the resilience of life that adapts and shifts within its boundaries. We can tell the story of how small changes accumulate into larger ones. But behind the patterns remains the larger question. Where did the music come from in the first place? Who wrote the score the universe keeps playing? There is a difference between learning the grammar of a language and explaining how language became possible. Children can rearrange letters. Poets breathe them into songs. The universe has letters, particles and forces, equations and constants. But to discover a vocabulary is not the same as dismissing the poet. When you find a poem washed up on the shore, the tide may have carried it there, but the ocean did not compose it. The ocean is a courier, not an author. And what shall we say about the rare jewel of consciousness, the way we wake into our own lives as more than machines? We tell stories, we choose, we love, we grieve. We stand at gravesides and feel the universe lurch with a sorrow too large for our chests. If you were only atoms, if you were only accident, why would you ache for justice that never seems to fully arrive, or beauty that seems too bright for this world? Why would music make your eyes water? Why would the innocence of a sleeping child silence a room? Animal instinct may explain hunger. It does not explain a hunger for eternity. Yet you know this longing. You have felt it. Sometimes it blooms in a cathedral. Sometimes it ambushes you in a grocery aisle when a song from years ago drifts out of a speaker and pulls open a door you thought was locked. The longing is the quiet witness. It says, as gently as a hand on your shoulder, you were made for someone. But you may say, all right, perhaps a mind explains origin and pattern. Perhaps the song suggests a singer, but why should I call that mind good? Why should I kneel? Come close and listen to your own heart when no one else is around. There is a compass inside you that insists on pointing somewhere. Even when you try to flick it in a different direction, it quivers and pulls back. A child cries, "That's not fair," before she knows how to spell the word fairness. Whole civilizations, separated by oceans and centuries, agree that certain things degrade us all. The betrayal of trust, the exploitation of the weak, the taking of innocent life. Our arguments tend to be about the margins, the methods, the boundaries, but the blazing center, the sense that goodness is not just preference but obligation, refuses to go away. Where did that stubborn ought come from? If you and I are only clever animals, then words like right and wrong are costumes we drape over appetite. A lion is not on trial for the gazelle's blood. A wolf does not ask permission to hunt. Yet when a human being injures another, something in us rises, not just as taste but as protest. This is not how the world ought to be. You know the difference in your bones between "I don't like that" and "that ought not be done." The first belongs to flavor, the second belongs to law. And if there is a law, there is a lawgiver, not the kind who scribbles in a distant office, but the kind who braided that law into your very being, so that when you act against it, your own soul rings like a cracked bell. I once sat with a man whose hands shook as he spoke. He had broken promises. He had run from the wreckage he left behind until there were no roads left to run. "I can't explain it," he whispered. "Even when I got away with it, something inside me kept telling the truth. He did not need a sermon. He needed a savior. But first he needed to be honest about what his own heart had been telling him all along, that the ghost of goodness haunting him was not an illusion. It was a witness. He found mercy in the end. Not because he rebranded evil as acceptable, but because he finally named it. And the God who is with met him there with a love that did not flinch. Perhaps you worry about hypocrisy, about people who wield God talk like a blade and cut down those they should have healed. I worry about that too. But counterfeit money does not prove there is no real currency. It only proves that the real thing is valuable enough to imitate. Don't judge the music by the worst players. Listen for the composer. If your objection is that some people have misused the idea of God, I stand with you in your grief. If your conclusion is that there is no God, I invite you to nibble at that logic until it collapses. Wicked musicians do not make Beethoven disappear. Follow the thread to one last room. Suppose there is a mind from whom all music comes. Suppose that mind wove conscience into our bones so we could hear the melody and recognize when we were singing off-key. Suppose he breathed us into a world where beauty is not a tease but a signpost. If all that is true, then the distance you feel is not proof of his absence. It is often the ache of his nearness. A fish does not feel the ocean until it's on the dock. We are the first creatures who can notice water while we are still in it. The very fact that you can ask, "Where are you?" is itself evidence that you are not alone. But why doesn't he just show up, you ask? My friend, perhaps he already has. Perhaps the reason the night sky stuns you is that it is his handwriting in a language your soul still remembers. Perhaps the reason injustice outrages you is that you were born under a king whose throne is rightness, and you know, without anyone telling you, that treason requires a verdict. Perhaps the reason love feels like an old country is because you are walking toward a Father Yes house you have not yet seen with your eyes, but your heart has never forgotten. And perhaps the reason the story keeps bending against all odds toward hope is that the author has already written himself into it. At this point, I must whisper the name that stepped into dust and hunger and heat and history. The three chords we've traced: origin, design, morality, don't print a portrait. They draw a silhouette. But in one life, the silhouette is filled with color. A carpenter's son walked our roads and called himself the truth in a voice that sounded like home. He healed what was broken not merely to prove power, but to prove heart. He carried shame that wasn't his. He gave his breath to the guilty. He rose like dawn. I cannot make you believe. I would not manipulate you if I could. But if the threads we've followed tug at your sleeves, lift your eyes toward the face where the threads converge. If you still can't pray, try this. If you're there, I'm here. Sometimes the door opens on that single trembling sentence. You may be listening as a skeptic with a faithful heart, or as a believer with honest doubts. Either way, walk back through the rooms with me and ask your questions one more time. Do beginnings need a cause? In every corner of your life they do. Why would the greatest beginning be different? Does mind leave a signature in pattern and order? In every craft you touch, it does. Why would the grand design of a living world be the only song without a singer? Does your conscience speak in a grammar stronger than taste? It does. Where did that grammar learn its alphabet? If you make each of those admissions, the humblest ones, not the loudest, you will find you have already stepped into the foyer of faith. The house is larger than the foyer, yes, and there are rooms in it you have not explored. But you are inside, and inside is where voices sound clearer. Still, you say, I have questions. Of course you do. Faith is not the end of questions. It is the refusal to quit asking them alone. If we are honest, even our skepticism has faith in it. You believe that reason can be trusted. You believe that your senses can roughly sketch reality. You believe that love is not a chemical prank. Those are not proofs. They are axioms, first gifts you did not manufacture. Tonight, hold those gifts in your hands and see if they point anywhere. If they do, don't be ashamed to follow. You will not be the first to make that courage move. Wanderers have been coming home by this road for a very long time. Maybe you are thinking of a time when you laughed and the room felt lighter and you could not explain why. Maybe you are remembering a different time when you sat on the floor of a shower just to cover the sound of your crying, and grief felt like a thick coat you could not take off. In both moments there was a presence, not an idea, not a rule book, a someone. You could not prove it, you could not photograph it, but you knew that knowing is not an illusion. It is a thin place, the membrane between your hunger and his heart. Some call it conscience, some call it beauty, some call it truth. I call it the first touch of the one who made you. When it happens again, and it will, just answer, even awkwardly, I hear you. He is patient with halting words. He is a father. He is not grading your grammar. He is gathering your heart. Let me speak now to the ones who already believe but feel small in a world that sneers. You don't have to win the internet. You don't have to carry the empire of God on your back. You are not the defense attorney for the Almighty. You are a lantern bearer. Your job is to keep the flame. Walk kindly. Tell your story without theatrics. Ask good questions and listen longer than feels comfortable. If someone wants a fight, bless them and refuse the invitation. The goal is not to make anyone look foolish. The goal is to make love visible. God is with every person you'll ever meet, whether they know it yet or not. So speak like one who stands beside a secret well and knows exactly where the rope is. And to the one who cannot believe or will not, I bless your honesty. I honor your refusal to fake it, but I will not stop praying that the hush will find you when you least expect it, in a baby's sigh, in a canyon's echo, in the blessed boredom of washing dishes. I pray that goodness will ambush you with its gentleness and convince you that the world is too saturated with meaning to be an accident. I pray that when your own heart reminds you of the harm you've done, you will feel mercy move toward you like dawn, not like a court summons. And I pray that you will dare to say one brave sentence before you sleep. If you are there, meet me. That is not weakness. That is the first strength. When the house quiets and you return to your pillow, the question may come again. Are you there? And again, the world may hold its breath. But perhaps this time, amid the hush, you will notice another sound, the kind you feel more than hear. It is the sound of your own name spoken from a place older than stars. It is the whisper that leaks through every keyhole and rides every sunrise. It is the signature under every beauty and the ache behind every ache. It says what it has always said to wanderers and doubters and saints and thieves. I am here. I have always been here. God is with. If this quiet conversation met you somewhere on the road, consider walking with us the rest of the way. Like, share and subscribe to God is with to help this message reach the ones who are asking the same brave questions you are. Leave a comment with your doubts and your stories. We read them, we pray over them, and we carry them like lanterns into the dark. Until we meet again, be gentle with your heart. Lift your eyes. Keep listening. The voice behind the veil is not a rumor. He is closer than your breath, and he loves you still.